Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something that, let's be honest, can sound a little dry: project management standards. But I promise you, this isn't about boring rules and red tape. We're going to peel back the curtain and show you how these frameworks are actually the secret sauce for turning project chaos into controlled, predictable success. So let's get into it. First things first, let's start with a question you've probably asked yourself, maybe after a really tough meeting. Why is it that, after all the planning, all the hard work, so many important, expensive, and critical projects still crash and burn? Well, the reasons are surprisingly common, and I bet some of these will feel pretty familiar. The project gets disconnected from what the company is actually trying to achieve. Senior leaders aren't really bought in. Key people are ignored until it's way too late. Maybe the team doesn't have the right skills or a proven method to follow. Or, and this is a classic, the project is just one giant, overwhelming chunk of work instead of small, manageable steps. These aren't just theories. These are the real-world gremlins that sink projects every single day. So how do we fix all this? The answer isn't working harder or throwing more people at the problem. The real solution, the thing that stops these problems before they even start, is better governance. It's the operating system that guides the entire effort. And that brings us to our big idea for today: governance of project management, or GOPM. So what is it really? Think of it like a constitution for your project. It's the framework that clearly lays out who has the authority to make calls, who's accountable for the results, and what processes everyone has to follow to make sure you're always pointing toward the company's North Star. It's all about bringing order to that potential chaos. Okay, to really get our heads around this, we're going to zoom in and out. We're going to start at the most fundamental level: governing just one single project. This is the foundation where all control is built. Right. At the end of the day, all that complex work boils down to this simple unit. If you get this one building block right, one team, focused on one clear goal, then everything else we're about to talk about actually becomes possible. So what does good governance look like at this level? It really boils down to a few core principles. First, and this is non-negotiable, senior leadership holds the ultimate responsibility. You can't just delegate it away. Second, you have to define everything: who does what the plan is, and where the official decision points are. Third, your data has to be solid. The business case needs to be based in reality, not just wishful thinking. And finally, and this is so important, you've got to build a culture where people feel safe to be honest about problems and where stakeholders are actually part of the conversation. Now, the good news is, you don't have to invent all this from scratch. There are several really well-established standards out there. And yeah, they might have different names and slightly different focuses, but they all share the exact same goal: bringing control and clarity to the project. What's really cool is when you see the different personalities of these standards. Prince2, for example, is obsessed with the authority of the project board. It wants to know exactly who is making the final call. Then you have the PMBOK Guide, which is all about creating repeatable processes for pretty much everything. And ISO 21500? It focuses more on the overall structure, the rules of the game. See, they're all trying to achieve control, just coming at it from slightly different angles. Okay, so we've got a good handle on a single project. Now, let's take one step back and see how these building blocks connect. When you start grouping related projects together to achieve a much bigger, more strategic goal, you get what's called a program. So we move from project to program. And this isn't just a bigger project, It's a whole collection of projects working in harmony to deliver a major change or a significant benefit for the organization. The key standard for this, managing successful programs, just puts it perfectly. Program governance is the control framework for delivering change objectives. And pay attention to that word, change. A program isn't just about delivering a thing. It's about delivering a fundamental change to the way the business operates. And this really shows the dual focus you need at this level. On one hand, you have to control the program itself, the vision, the benefits, all those interconnected projects. But on the other hand, you have this duty of stewardship to the entire organization, making sure this big effort serves the business's best interests. It's a real balancing act. So, As you'd probably guess, the responsibilities here just get bigger. A program board isn't just approving a small project plan. They're on the hook for funding the entire initiative. They're not just closing one project, they're recommending when to shut down the whole multi-project program. They're the ones deciding when to kick off new projects within the program and basically monitoring the whole thing from a much higher altitude. All right, let's take our final step back. Let's get the ultimate view from the top. We're moving beyond single projects and even programs to look at how an organization steers its entire collection of investments. Welcome to the world of the portfolio. And here we are at the top of the pyramid, from project to program to portfolio. This is that 30,000-foot view. It includes all projects and programs happening across the whole company. This is where the really big strategic decisions get made. And this, right here, is the fundamental shift in thinking. Down at the project and program level, you're focused on execution, on doing projects right. But up here, at the portfolio level, the game completely changes. The question becomes strategic. Out of all the possible things we could be doing, are we investing our limited time, money, and people in the right things? And managing this is a continuous cycle of activity. You have to define what's even in the portfolio, then you optimize it to get the best bang for your buck, you formally authorize the work, and you provide constant oversight. It's not a one-and-done decision. You can see it's a living, breathing process of planning and steering all of the organization's investments. And here it is. This is the payoff for all of this structure. The ultimate goal of portfolio governance is to create a direct, clear, unbroken line of sight, from the work a developer is doing on a single project all the way up to the highest level strategic goals of the entire company. Every dollar spent, every hour worked is pushing in the exact same direction. That's powerful stuff. So we've gone from a single project to a program all the way up to the entire portfolio. Now, let's tie it all together. Let's find that common thread of success, the core principles that work no matter what level you're at or what standard you're using. If you forget everything else from this explainer, just remember these 3 pillars. First, clarity and accountability. Everybody knows their job and everybody knows who gets to make the final call. Second, strategic alignment. The work always, and I mean always, connects back to the big picture. And third, structured oversight. There's a regular rhythm of review and reporting to make sure everything stays on the rails. Because in the end, this really isn't about memorizing acronyms like PM2 or PM-b OK. It's about adopting a mindset that values control over chaos, clarity over confusion, and a constant, powerful connection to strategy. And that brings us to the end. So I'll just leave you with one final question to think about. Looking at your own work right now, which one of these principles, clarity, alignment, or oversight, could be the biggest game changer for your next project? Thanks for watching.